In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the .tally tree measurement method. This is the only tree measurement method that requires any additional work on your part. So you'll see when you start a new project that the 100% tally is one of your options for inventory type. In the context of this master template, 100% tally is not only in fact, 100% tally and not a sample cruise, but it also changes the tree measurement method to what on Forest Metrix we call the dot tally. Now, so in order to use the dot tally functionality, you have to set up your tally sheets. This is pretty much the only thing that you need to do in advance on Forest Metrix for this one feature to work. So you'll go into your template settings and go to tree measurement method. And at the top, you will see the different ways that trees can be tallied in Forest Metrix. By default, it's on option B, which is multiple products by varying lengths, which is the protocol that we've looked at previously. But there is what we call dot tally. So select dot tally. And when you do that, on the iPad, you'll see this dot tally sheet setup. On the iPhone, you have to swipe over to get to the dot tally sheet setup. And this takes you to where your dot tally sheets are set up. So what you're seeing is each of the species in your species pick list is associated with the dot tally sheet. And for each dot tally sheet, you can set it up with different diameter increments and height increments. Diameters, if you picture an old school dot tally sheet where you're using pen and paper, you have your diameter increments listed down the left-hand side. Sheets, you'll probably want to run those diameters down across the top, and you're tallying in that matrix to indicate the number of trees by diameter by height of that species. So right here is how you can set up those increments, how you want your dot tally sheets to appear. So by default, all the sheets are set in 2-inch increments by diameter, 10 to 40, and all of the heights are set up in 8-foot increments from a half a log to 5 logs. Now for your saw log products, particularly your hardwood, this may be perfectly appropriate. So before we get too far along here, I need to add a tally sheet that is being considered a hardwood pulp or softwood pulp. So I'll just do this on the iPad for clarity. I'm going to go back and close that, and I'm going to go to my trees. There's also a species called softwood pulp. And now you'll see by default softwood pulp. These are obviously not saw timber sheets, but these are here for the purposes of developing your dot tally sheets. So in order to exploit those, we're going to scroll down to where we get to a species called hardwood pulp. The saw log sheets, or your general species sheets, are set up with diameter increments from 10 to 40, whereas your pulp sheets start at 6. So everything I've shown you so far is simply default settings. The only thing that you need to do is determine which of these species/products you need to see a tally sheet for. And for that, you're going to assign your tally sheets down the right-hand side. You have 16 tally sheets. So that means you could have a tally sheet for hardwood pulp, a tally sheet for softwood pulp, and a tally sheet for 14 different species of saw timber. Now this is just going to show your pick list, which is using the Wisconsin defaults. But if we hit the back button and go to our trees, we can change what shows up in our pick list on the right-hand side. In order to use pulp sheets, you need to add the hardwood and softwood pulp to your pick list. So I'm going to scroll down to hardwood pulp. You can see here I want it selected. On the iPhone, I'm going to scroll down, select hardwood pulp. We'll keep going down to softwood pulp. And now we will go back to tallying in the upper left and tree measurement method. Select dot tally sheet setup. And now we'll see we can assign hardwood pulp and softwood pulp to a tally sheet. And we can confirm that we're done. And we can confirm that we're done now. We're just setting up those 6 tally sheets. So let's hit the back button and we'll close our tree measurement method. We'll go back home and we can start a new project. And now I'm going to select 100% tally, and we need to add a stand. I'll enter in an acreage. Ready and start. So now when we go to our plots page, we are ready to select the tally sheet. So at each plot, for instance, right now I'm on plot 1 because we only have one plot because it is in fact a 100% tally, so it's in essence one huge fixed area plot. We are going to simply select the species that we want to tally. So I'm going to select birch, and now we simply dot tally 14-inch by 16 foot, 10-inch by 24 foot, or 8 foot, and so forth. And then I have some maple. So as you're marking or as you're doing 100% tally, you're just flipping among these sheets. Oh, now I have some hardwood pulp. Now you'll see when I went to my pulp sheet, the diameter increments changed. The diameter increments now start at 6 rather than 10. Now on each device, you're going to be getting either a beep or a buzz, a little bit of feedback when you successfully touch a field. So that's it. You're simply flipping among your sheets and tallying your increments. Now, one thing you can do on the iPad that you can't do on the iPhone is we're going to go back home. No, I'll be back. We can switch the dot tally sheet to use keypad entry. If I enter this checkbox in the upper left. Now, when we go back to our tally page, I'm going back home and then to my plots. When I touch a field, I'm going to touch on 14 by 40. I can enter in a number and add that. So say for instance, you're doing this on paper in the field and you get back to your office, you can enter large numbers of trees by using this function. This function doesn't exist on the iPad. We'll call that done, head back home, and now you would go on to your analysis. It is really important to note that you can use dot tally tree measurement method with a sample cruise. And you can do it either as a cumulative tally or tallying trees on a plot where you just are treated as though you have a set of tally sheets for each plot. And at each plot, you're moving among your tally sheets to tally the trees that you're swinging in your prism. The tree measurement method is not at all fixed to the sampling method. It's just that in the Wisconsin framework, when you start a new project, when you turn it to 100% tally, it's automatically changing it to dot tally. And that's all.